Hello, Guardians. Iso here. When we last left off, Mithrax was already falling upon ill fortunes. He'd fled his House of Wolves, and even fought against them for a time. His best friend had been lost to battle. To make it worse, he'd been caught up in a battle against a Hive Knight. When the protagonist arrived and killed the knight, for a moment perhaps they aimed their weapon at Mithrax as well. But both warriors hesitated. When it was clear that the Guardian would not open fire, Mithrax surrendered the methane reactor he had came for, crossed his swords in respect, and then left. After this, he knew he couldn't return to House Dusk. They'd kill him. His allowance of mercy only showed weakness in their eyes. He concluded that humanity was deserving of the Traveler, and then fled the House of Dusk. He eventually met and befriended two unnamed Guardians, a hunter and a warlock, and the three of them began traveling together. After some time, Mithrax returned to the reef so he could visit the tomb of his old friend, Seer. While searching for the tomb, he explains to his friends the value of names, as described in the lore of Lord of Wolves. "So why'd they call themselves wolves?" the hunter asks. "You guys don't really have any wolves on your homeworld, do you?"
"Nama,"
the captain replies. He's perched on a rusted-out skiff. He scans the horizon, trying to remember the way to the crypt. "So, why then? Most people haven't even seen one." "Yeah," the warlock chimes in. "I'd never even heard of the wolves till I went to the Iron Temple." The captain cocks his head in the way that makes him look like a squat, hulking owl.
"Why eliksni accept name Fallen? Why wolves accept name Wolves? Why Misraaks is now..."
He grimaces as he mimes their accents, showing his serrated teeth.
"Mithrax."
He rises in one fluid motion and stands at his full height.
"Why speak Guardian way instead, eliksni? Docked things do not word themselves."
He hops down, brushing past the hunter and the warlock with the rippling strength of a hunting tiger.
"House of Wolves. They ben Mraskilasan. Gentle weavers. Come, I know the way now."
Mithrax clearly puts little value into names, especially those that are assigned. To him, what do names count for if the bloodthirsty House Dusk started as simple fabric weavers? Later, their adventure continues in the lore for Queenbreaker. Three cloaked figures trek through a cave on a windswept asteroid. As they walk, they joke. They tell stories. They are a fire team. After Cybele, the warlock says, the wolves bowed. Some became the queen's bodyguards. Then, Skolas... Whoa. How? Why? The hunter frowns. Why trust enemies with your life? A pause. No offense, buddy. The captain shrugs, none taken.
Strange to do. But, eliksni, we ben breathe always love for honor. New promise not unmaken old. Wolves would ben follow Kell forever if Skolas does not appear again.
The passage widens, and they find a hidden door veneered with amethyst. The captain lays a hand on it, bows his head. The hunter and the warlock fall back respectfully. After a time, the warlock ventures. "Misraaks?" The captain turns.
"Wolves rebel. Now, wolves extinct. This where-live mind thing scatter must end. I will Kell the mind open, eliksni. No spider tricks. No loyal lies. Verisis truths. We fight for the great machine together."
Clearly, Mithrax wants to create real change between Guardians and eliksni, even going so far that he would be willing to lead a group of open-minded eliksni to humanity. He even scorns the actions of the spider, and Varix the Loyal, claiming that his version of Parley and Peace would be different, would be better. Unfortunately, it's not specified how, but Mithrax eventually stops adventuring with his hunter and warlock. Later, Mithrax learns of a group of House Devil's loyalists that are planning on stealing a special Siva weapon from the last city's vaults. Knowing he can't stop them alone, he sends out a secret signal to Guardians, and that signal is picked up by none other than the Guardian that spared his life a year ago, the protagonist. In a race against time, the protagonist and Mithrax storm the abandoned section of the last city and stop the Loyalists before they can escape. This mission was completely secret. None of the Vanguard knew. Mithrax leaves the Siva weapon behind in the protagonist's hands, not fully trusting to return it back to the city's vaults. But before any explanation can be given, Mithrax flees. The next time he's encountered is during the events of the Beyond Light campaign. He's the entire reason the Vanguard first sent scouts, including the protagonist, to Europa. The vague and strange signals that were sent to the Vanguard were, in fact, from Mithrax. The Kell of House Salvation, Aramis, attempts to begin a new empire of Fallen, aided not by the Traveler, but by darkness. Some of the eliksni refugees that disagree with her teachings are directed to Mithrax, and the protagonist even helps some of the ships flee. Mithrax officially founded a new eliksni house, the House of Light. He named himself Kell, as he said he would, and made his daughter, Ido, the scribe. Ido was of course named after none other than Sir Ido, Mithrax's awoken friend that had passed decades ago. While on Europa, one of his ships was shot down by Vex there, and while defending his people, he discovered the protagonist once again, investigating the attack. Ikora, who was watching and listening through the comms, greeted him and asked him for help, since the city was currently under duress from the Vex. Mithrax's skills as a Splicer, an eliksni hacker and scientist, would prove useful. However, he could not abandon his people. So, Ikora extended an invitation and sheltered the eliksni refugees in the last city, though she could only grant them the ruined buildings of the Batsa district. His stay there is proving to be turbulent. While in the last city, he accidentally encounters Lord Shax, as described in the lore for the weapon Survivor's Epitaph. To be the first eliksni to bask in the presence of the Traveler since the Whirlwind was an honor that Mithrax, Kell of House Light, never imagined for himself. As he stood on the tower walkway below the scar left in the wake of the Almighty, he meditated on the choices in his life that had led to this point. He wondered if there was a unifying thread binding all those events together. But he would have no time to ponder such things. A shadow crept over Mithrax, broad shoulders, a curling horn. Seeing the stark outline of Lord Shax looming on the stairs elicited centuries-old instincts, and it was temperance that kept Mithrax's hands from his weapon. "I didn't expect to actually find you here," Shax said as he continued down the stairs with slow, plodding steps. "Were you there?"
What?
Shax came to stand beside Mithrax at the railing. "Were you there?" he asked again. This time he pointed, without looking, to a place on the horizon beyond the Traveler. Mithrax followed Shax's gesture with his eyes. He did not understand. "The Battle of Six Fronts," Shax insisted, with uncharacteristic softness. "Do you know how many Fallen I killed there?" Mithrax bristled at the question, and he felt that instinctual urge to reach for his weapon again. But the presence of the Traveler, and the question that nagged at the back of his mind, stayed his hand.
"How many?"
he asked, not wanting to know the answer. Shax deflated, folding his arms over the railing, and rested his considerable weight against it. "Hundreds," he said quietly. "All of them died afraid." Mithrax felt ether mixing with bile in the back of his throat. His limbs trembled, rage burned into his gut, demanding manifestation. But he tempered his anger. Sighed so deep that the ether on his breath was briefly visible as an iridescent cloud. "How many humans have you killed?" Shax wondered.
"Too many,"
Mithrax answers. And even that felt insufficient on his tongue. The thought of it twisted his insides around. He sighed again, deeper this time, and Shax watched the sublimated ether glitter in the dim light. "When I heard you were in the tower," Shax said, "I thought I'd just throw you over the edge of the wall. I thought about the people I watched die at the hands of your houses over the years. The lightless torn limb from limb during the Dark Age." He snorted out a rueful laugh. "Then I started to think about them." Silence hung in the air for a moment, long enough for Mithrax to ask.
"Who?"
"3 scavengers, huddled together in a collapsed storm drain. They'd stolen food during a time of famine. Maybe it was for themselves. Maybe another settlement. Maybe family." Shax shrugged. "I killed them, all 3, with my bare hands." "My victims were human too," Shax clarified, and the Kell felt his anger twist into confusion. "I was a warlord of the Dark Ages. Convinced myself of the necessity of my own barbarism by painting it with noble colors. Those loyal to me built a legend that masked the blood and the rot. But it's still there." He tapped his fingers against his breastplate. "Deep down." The shadows had become long, stars now visible in the sky, and the traveler was cast in half-shadow.
"There was a ship,"
Mithrax eventually replied.
"It may have been soldiers, civilians. I do not know."
He looked away from the traveler as he spoke.
"I led a boarding party onto it. We slaughtered any who resisted, and rounded up those who surrendered."
Shax turned to look at Mithrax, a wordless question in his faceless mask.
"We argued what to do with the prisoners. Some suggested we keep them as warning trophies. Others said to barter with them."
Mithrax looked away. Shoulders sagged.
"But I was young. Impatient.
He closed his eyes.
I opened the airlock. It seemed the simplest solution."
Both soldiers sank into silence again, and remained so as the last glimpse of sunlight descended beyond the horizon. Shax sullenly took his leave, and Mithrax was left with the remnants of anger and confusion, and paradoxically, an answer. He saw then the thread of choices leading to this moment, the choices that led to the Great Machine and away from a fate like Aramis had suffered. It was something both he and Shax learned to accept, in spite of a lifetime of experience telling them otherwise. Mercy. I believe it's clear that Mithrax is an amazing example of a changed person. All it took was a little bit of experience. I hope this video can be not only a tale from the world of Destiny, but a reminder that sometimes mercy is the strongest weapon we can use. But, regardless, I want to thank you for joining me today, and remind you to subscribe if you haven't already. The best way to let me know that you enjoy my content is to leave a like on the video, or a comment down below. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.